Apologies for that.
Battery was.
Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to launch a new format of media, and we think that might be a first for Cannes. Obviously, I'm joined by Stefano, who's the founder and inventor of Morphcast technology that enables us to create adaptive media, and by Martin, who's a BAFTA and multi-award-winning, he's back now, interactive film and adaptive film director, and he'll be able to take some questions about how we go about creating adaptive media experiences. But first, I better tell you what adaptive media is. So, adaptation based upon face analysis is as old as humanity. It's something we're all born with. Adaptive media is digital media that adapts to the viewer in real time based upon their emotions, how they appear and how they react. Just as humans instinctively adapt to each other, but without the need to film or record or send your personal information to a server. So if we think about that analogy a little bit, if you meet somebody for the first time and you don't know their name, you don't know their date of birth, you don't know where they're from, you haven't seen their LinkedIn, you haven't seen their Facebook, you can't access this big cloud of programmatic data that we all carry around with us, all of us have no problem adapting and adjusting to the person in front of us based upon inputs like demographic. Are they young? Are they old? Emotions, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they paying attention? If they're not paying attention, we can do something to get their attention back. And that is effectively what we're doing with adaptive media, using camera-based technologies on the device and artificial intelligence. So do we need adaptive media? First observation is that existing digital formats are failing to capture attention. When I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was a world where there was a relative shortage of media but no shortage of attention. We're now in a world where there's almost a complete shortage of attention but no shortage of media. In my experience, brands are becoming disillusioned with existing formats' effectiveness. An impression is 1 second. You can't build a brand in 1 second. 60% of clicks on mobile devices are accidents. We've all got fat fingers and thumbs. It wasn't designed to do that. And bot fraud is a huge problem. 7.2 billion is wasted on bot fraud. So imagine a format that can fully measure an ad impression from beginning to end, but without infringing personal data issues. And then the biggest problem, people losing trust in advertisers to do the right thing with their personal data, and consumers are getting swamped by just more and more programmatic advertising. So quickly, where did we go wrong? The banner ad is now 25 years old. The first banner had an amazing click-through of 44%. Now it's 0.05%. So I don't know if there's any creatives in the audience, but a question for everybody. Did anyone get into this industry to make banners?
One troublemaker.
He used to make me make banners as well, so
Oh,
that's quite
okay,
funny. No, you didn't. And what we're trying to do today is show you a new format that can replace these 25-year-old formats that weren't really fit for purpose. So if we could delete the banner and start again with a new format, what would it do? How can we get beyond this banner blindness? We need a format to capture, measure, and reward attention, but without infringing on people's personal data. One quick, fun analogy. Go back to 1474. William Caxton brought the printing press to the UK, bought it from Holland. Within 3 days, he'd printed the first print ad. It was actually for a thing called pies, and these weren't the pies you eat, they were religious sermons. So Stefano here in a minute has been thinking like an originator of a new format, a new technology. This is quite a big moment, we think, for smartphones and devices. And if we think about what device are we designing it for, we're not designing it for the printing press. Should it be AR, MR, all these new shiny things? I don't see people using them in their everyday lives. What's the device that we use in our everyday life? It's a smartphone. 2.7 billion of us have smartphones. The cameras are for more than recording. When Stefano was designing and building the technology, he was watching his teenage daughters interact and use the cameras, but he thought this could be more than just using them for selfies and for recording. You can use them as a facial input to create a new type of experience. Artificial intelligence, we can use it to solve a Rubik's Cube challenge in under a second. We can use it to create a personalized ad experience. And then finally, the processors on these devices 4 years ago on the early iPhones were very slow, but Stefano figured that they were going to get really, really fast, which means we can create hyper-personalized experiences within the device, but without having to send someone's personal data to a server in Silicon Valley or wherever else. So we have a number of technologies. The first is the facial analysis, which I will show you in a second. The technology we're launching today is our Adaptive Media Creator Studio. Our video player is a 300 kilobyte player that downloads automatically into the browser and plays without app or plugin. And then we also have anonymized analytics dashboard. Very important point is that we don't film or record. All personal frames are deleted within 100 milliseconds, and the user must always allow the camera. Now, let's hope this goes to plan. And I'm going to create an instance of our SDK. And I'm going to have a numeric age. I won't click all the options. And we generate our SDK. And then I allow the camera. So this is me, okay? And you can see that my motions are being tracked along the bottom. Come back to the age in a minute. It's the blue light that's kind of making me look a little bit older. And as you can see, our mood wheel is able to monitor and measure wheel. When I pay attention very closely, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see we have the ability to measure, monitor attention, which is very useful for things like e-learning as well as advertising. Now, this is actually the audition that I had to do to get us into Cannes. Now, quick question for the audience. How old do you think I am? I don't mind if you're rude. 45. Okay. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I'm actually 52. Morphcast, because the light's quite good. Now, that's getting to my proper age. We're not interested in somebody's date of birth and their actual age. We're just using this to use it so we can serve content that's relevant to that person and that individual. Now I want to show you Morphcast Studio.
People have always reacted to faces and facial expressions. Now, adaptive media can react to people's faces too. Adaptive media is a new type of digital media that adjusts naturally to the viewer's face in real time, based on how they appear and react, just like people do. When we meet someone new, we immediately know a huge amount about them just by looking at them. Adaptive media does something very similar. It uses the device camera and artificial intelligence to determine your demographics and emotions. Then, it can serve the digital content that you'll find most relevant and interesting.
Great, thank you.
Hello!
With adaptive media, you can personalize videos based on demographic factors like the user's age and gender. Adaptive media videos can branch based on emotional responses like happiness or surprise.
Nice smile. Okay, relax.
Adaptive media can recognize objects like fruit.
You've got an apple. You've got a banana.
It can even tell whether the user is paying attention. And if they're not, it can do something to get their attention back.
Don't believe me? Just look away.
All this adaptive media is built with Morphcast. With Morphcast Studio, creators can build a wide range of adaptive media experiences. Morphcast Studio features preset inputs for factors like age, demographics, features, and most importantly, emotion. Morphcast uses the Morphcast web-based video player. It's a tiny file, just 300K, and it downloads automatically into the browser. No app or plugin are required. The user just needs to switch on their camera.
So, are you ready to try it?
Just press the button to allow us to use your camera. Great!
Personal privacy is fundamental to our technology. Morphcast fully conforms to GDPR. There is no recording or storing of biometric data. All image frames are destroyed in 1/10 of a second, and none of your personal data goes to a server. The human face provides the richest source of insights available, and now we can use adaptive media to capture, measure, and reward attention without the need for people's personal data. Contact us to find out how you can create adaptive media with Morphcast Studio.
Come on, hurry up! Get in touch now! Thank you! You're beautiful.
Welcome to the age of adaptive media.
Okay. So, how can you guys use adaptive media? So this is one for brands, agencies, creators. What are the sorts of things that you could do? And obviously this technology is designed for people probably far more creative than I am, like Martin, but I've got some thought starters for you. For example, an adaptive media campaign. A famous retailer wants their Christmas campaign to stand out by making their message relevant to the individual. Again, excuse the creative, but imagine they have a character called Santa's Bear, and he's there to help you have the best Christmas you ever had. We allow the camera, and Santa's Bear can see kids, and he can say, "Hi, let me help and guess what you want from Santa this Christmas." So we can personalize Christmas for 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old. Maybe the grandparent is looking for what are the must-have toys for Christmas. And mum and dad, have you got the turkey yet? Help them with the food preparation. So the format of the ad can adapt to the individual. Could create the first advert that rewards attention. Imagine a charity, a mental health charity, is finding its message is being ignored and wants to reward people for paying attention. With our format, when somebody's read the ad, the sponsor can give the charity a token reward for having read the ad. Underpinning our technology is an attention token, which will enable people to be monetized for their own attention. It's a completely new model. It's great for things like product trials. We're doing things with fragrance brands where fragrance isn't a particularly visual thing, but when you try the fragrances, we can add an emotional layer to engaging with that product. So we can choose some parameters: happy, surprised, disgust. And then as she goes through the different ones, maybe that one's not so good because its disgust is quite high, but this one's quite good. And then we can extrapolate a thing called a positive impression. And then we can associate that engagement that consumer has with that product with that positive impression. And just a final one for you, adaptive media can support completely new formats of entertainment. So imagine a music artist wants to connect with their fans in a completely new way. Have the fan, we have the music artist. The music artist says, "Do you want to hear me play my new song?" Just allow the camera. And suddenly we've got an unplugged version of a track. You're getting quite into this. You're really getting into this, let's turn it up, and then we can change the narrative to a plugged version of the track. You go, hang on, did that just happen? Did the media just adapt to me? And you get away from the camera and you go and get a friend. Now, she won't know what you're going to do, but she won't see you, so she'll put down a guitar. And you come back, where's she gone? The media has my attention, and it's, oh, you brought a friend, and then we're going to rock this thing to 11, which is a good point to hand over to Martin Percy.
Right. Hello, thank you very much. So, what is the oldest form of communication? Sir? No. The oldest form of communication, anybody? Huh? Speech, but what kind of speech? Word beginning with S? Wrong. So the oldest form of communication is not the story, but the oldest form of communication, almost speech, but what kind of speech? One way or another word, exactly. Conversation, brilliant. Full marks for BN. So the oldest form of communication is the story. Next time you're in a conference, start again. The oldest form of communication is the conversation. Next time you're in a conference and someone says the oldest form of communication is the story, tell them no. Animals have conversations. Naked mole rats have conversations, but they don't tell stories. So it's the most instinctive, most basic form of communication. Now, linear films, much as we all love them, work like stories or like lectures. They're one way. Adaptive media, that Matthew's just been showing us, is a wider category, and then within that a narrower category of interactive films. Those work like conversations. So done right, they can be even more instinctive than stories. So adaptive media and interactive films, another way to put it is, adaptive media and interactive films turn viewers into, turn viewers into what? Interactive films turn viewers into what? Begins with a D, rhymes with viewers. Doers, exactly. Adaptive media and interactive films turn viewers into doers. Thank you, they like it. Deciders, thinkers, even potentially purchasers. So, very few films want to do this. One of the many problems with making interactive films is people immediately think that you want to make Game of Thrones interactive. The people who make Game of Thrones don't want it to be interactive. They want their viewers to do what, madam? Game of Thrones viewers Game of Thrones creators want the viewers to do what? To sit there and shut up, right? You know, to be couch potatoes, which is fine. That's the deal with Game of Thrones. But, okay, this is a generalization, forgive me, but to generalize, basically every ad wants to turn viewers into doers. Every ad doesn't just want people to just sit there passively. They want them ultimately to do something. That's why it's an ad. So, yeah, you're thinking, but does it work? Now, adaptive media is an excitingly new format, so we don't have data about that. But let me show you some things which I've done, which you could do with what the product that Matthew was talking about, which you could do with Morphcast. So this is a still from a film called Lifesaver. Lifesaver is an interactive film which teaches CPR on phones and tablets. Medical research was done with 81 school kids in Halifax, UK, and found that Lifesaver teaches CPR 27% better than traditional CPR training with a plastic dummy. So just think about that. Training with a plastic dummy is extremely expensive. You can teach using this sort of approach and teach kids 27% better than with that traditional training. Heart Class is another interactive film which teaches CPR in US classrooms, 30 kids at a time, same approach. Medical research on 600 kids in Louisville, Kentucky, found that it teaches 90% better than traditional training. So, what could we do with advertising? Let's talk and find out. So, a couple of things about creative approach. Making films for adaptive media is not difficult, but it is different. I'm an interactive film director. Here is my basic approach. There are other approaches, of course, but this is what I do. So, sir, are stories interactive on the whole? No, look at the whole history of stories. Are they interactive, yes or no? No, of course not. I mean, a tiny fraction are, but basically not. Sir, real life. Is real life interactive? Would say yes, of course it is. So, stories are not interactive, on the whole, with some exceptions which we can discuss, but on the whole they're not interactive. But real life is always interactive. So, my approach to make a good interactive or adaptive film, don't try to tell an interactive story. Instead, make a model of real life. In a good interactive and adaptive film, doing things feels natural and instinctive. So, if you want to turn your viewers into doers, then let's talk and make some adaptive media. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just before we have questions, summary for you. This is an original new format. It's designed for the smartphone, but it works on any digital screen with a browser and a camera. It fully protects GDPR. It's fully patented and proprietary technology. And I think some key takeouts. The first one, I would say this, but we're entering the adaptive era of advertising. If you think of the first era as linear, the kind of the great age of TV ads, print ads, and posters, the interactive age we maybe had for the last 25 years, which has, I think, had some ups and some downs. And then with artificial intelligence, we're entering an adaptive era where we can use AI technologies for great, good experiences for people. And we can safely scale AI on the smartphone with technology that protects personal data. And with our technology, you can be the first to use it. Thanks so much.
Loads of questions, so I'm just going to go with the top-rated one. So, what is your AI models trained on if you do not keep the data, and how are you managing the bias in public data sets?
This one for you. What are our AI models trained on?
The deep neural network that we use in our technology is trained on big data sets with all races. This doesn't mean that we can cancel the bias, because it's also impossible to cancel bias in humans. Sometimes can happen that I look at somebody and say, Martin, is a human or man that one? It's not easy that artificial intelligence can be better than our brain with millions of years of evolution. So more the data set is big, and more the artificial intelligence can reduce this problem. But at the end, we should have all the faces in the world to reduce close to zero this problem.
Yeah. Another question is for you, Stefano. It's what inspired you to create Morphcast?
But usually in my life, I had the lucky to do exactly what I want to do. It means that I did things for passion and not for thinking about how to make money with what I do. But at first, do something better or something that can be useful. And I aim that everybody use the technology to make the things that before they was making in a different way. So that was my, let me say, my inspiration. In 2013, I was starting to think about an interactive video that it was the instant video, to make it on the browser side instead of on the server side. So not to create like with Flash all the files together, and after that everybody see the same video, but doing it in the browser. If you do in the browser, you can change the scenes of the video depending on the hour of the day where you are located, or something like that. In 2014, this interaction came the maximum expression with a guy that came in my company and told me if the video are different between people, theoretically, each one of us can have a different video in front. Why don't you take the feedback from his face? And this guy, that is Roberto Marras, was working in the advertisement field, and was making me dreaming to make this kind of interaction. But in 2014, there was not face recognition and all what we know now. And we just started to to file the patent in that time. And he's a co-inventor with me. And from that moment, we spent something like this years between last year that we finished the product and over 10 million euro in research and development. I put all my effort in this and a big team of engineers and researchers to do it. Now we have a product, is mature, works in the browser, not on the server side, and doesn't need any app to be shown. And theoretically, any one of us can have a different video in front of him because we have different reactions, different face, different age and gender.
Could I just make one point? It's very modest. Stefano created the world's first e-commerce site in '93, a year before Amazon, and it was sold a few years later. So he's somebody who's, when others zag, I think.
Because I trust in my intuition and I don't put the limit of how to manage it or where I can find the money to do it. Just that. I'm not rich. Don't think that I don't care about money because I have money. No, it's the contrary. But I think that if you have a good idea and you follow your intuition, don't look too much around what the other do. You can find something really different and innovative. The market will say that it is useful or not.
Right, next question. So do you need to allow camera access multiple times for each ad?
No.
Depends on the platform. On Chrome, no. On some app, no. With Safari, yes. But I think that is a good idea to ask the camera to people because asking camera, saying that if you show your face, I don't take any data from you. I have no information about you, and I don't identify you. It's more safe than keeping close the camera and be tracked for everything you do or which friends you have in the social.
Great. One final question then. So how it's for tagged for you as well. It's how do you see the future of video?
Oh, in 2013, I was seeing this kind of video in the future. I think we have to work for the next 10 or 20 years to make it better. And what we did now is just some very not sophisticated. It is wonderful for now, but I think we have to work a lot, getting all the environment signals. And in my future, for example, I see that the camera of the smartphones will be open anytime for a lot of reasons. To be safe, to control the environment, to have inputs, will change very much our life in the future. And not only with a big father that is looking at us, but when everything will be decentralized in our smartphones and remain there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So
if you do have any more questions, I'm sure that the guys will be around to answer them just around here. Thank you.